I'm gonna show you guys something that might land me in some pretty hot water, and I've been in many hot waters in my time. This exact clip right here got banned in places like Germany, India, and the Middle East.
Ryan, I'm going to need you to deliver the baby.
And trust me, there's plenty more where that came from in this video. For instance, Family Guy goes flying off the rails pretty early on in the episode Road to Rhode Island when Brian and Stewie lose their plane tickets and are forced to find another way back home.
Hola, me llamo es Brian. Let's see. Queremos ir con ustedes.
Honestly, even if Brian's usually a whiny frick who thinks he's smarter than he really is, that was not a half-bad attempt at Spanish. Speaking of Brian, the episode starts with him visiting a psychiatrist and talking about how he was born in a puppy mill in Austin, Texas, and taken away from his mom as a baby. Suffice to say, there's a lot more unresolved trauma there that he has not unpacked yet.
Brian, you really seem to be enjoying wine.
Only my second glass.
Oh yeah, because drinking one's problems has historically worked well for a lot of people. As for Stewie, he's off at his grandparents' summer home in Palm Springs, Cali, being the adorable, kind baby we all know and love.
Give Nana a big hug, sweetheart.
Should guarantee some after-dinner entertainment.
Come on, this is Stewie we're talking about here, guys. Brian does something uncharacteristic and volunteers to actually be helpful by picking up Stewie at the airport. But it's here that Family Guy includes a painfully ill-timed segment involving Osama bin Laden. As Stewie goes to security, he realizes his bag is full of weapons and starts singing On the Good Ship Lollipop to distract the x-ray scanners. And guess who's hanging out on the next line over?
God, I hope I get it. I hope I get it. How many people does he need? How many boys? How many girls?
And while it doesn't seem super offensive today, the problem is that a year and a half after this episode aired, bin Laden would end up orchestrating a little-known thing you might know as frackin' 9/11. So naturally, the entire segment got completely scrubbed in the US. Of course, Brian being Brian, he immediately makes a fool of himself by getting absolutely hammered at the airport bar and trying to make a pass at a 4 out of 10. That was so rude! And when Stewie has to drag him back, they realize all their stuff has gotten stolen except for little Rupert.
I tell you to watch the bags. You were watching the boys again. It's that one who looks like Tab Hunter.
It's okay, Rupert. I'm sure you tried your best to watch those bags, buddy. With no way to get home, they have no choice but to spend the night at a seedy motel, the kind where you rent a room by the hour, if you catch my drift.
Oh my God.
It's a bit on the nose, but there you go. Meanwhile, Peter and Lois decide to work on their communication by watching relationship videos from Dr. Amanda Rebecca. But unbeknownst to Lois, there's a lot more to Amanda that meets the eye.
You want to talk, or you want me to take my top off?
To quote my beloved Rowley Jefferson, Zoo-wee mama! Diary of a Wimpy Kid reference in 2025? Come on, if you don't come here for content like that, I don't know what to tell you. While Peter starts ordering more of these relationship advice videos, Brian and Stewie end up having to hotwire a car and make a break for it after their credit card declines. From there, they masquerade as crop dusters to try and steal a plane, except neither of them have any real piloting experience. Yeesh. Now that's some tough steak. Thanks, editor. After hitchhiking with some migrants, they find themselves just outside of Austin, Texas, which inspires Brian to try and find his old birthplace. Everything seems fine at first glance, and his old owners even recognize him despite how many years have gone by. But when Brian asks about what happened to his mother, well...
So we had her stuff! Well, I say, someone must have said a funny.
Yeah, honestly, I never understood the appeal of stuffing your old pets. Burying or cremating is just too normal for some people, I guess. I don't know, man. They collect his mom and give her a proper burial before finally making it home by hitching a ride in an open boxcar. As for Lois, she finds out what's really going on in those relationship tapes and inserts herself at the end of one of them, which leads to her and Peter having a bit of sexy time for themselves. Of course, Peter being Peter...
You should have told me. Should have told me.
Hey, no shame in needing a little outside inspiration to get the old weasel running. But let's go across international waters and see how Malaysia handled the uber-controversial episode, When You Wish Upon a Weinstein. To sum it all up, Peter becomes obsessed with befriending a Jewish person to improve his finances, and even tries to convert Chris to Judaism to make him better at math.
Okay, now what you gotta do is go down the road, find 2 roads, one perpendicular, one parallel, keep going until you come to a highway at a 45-degree angle. Solve for X.
I can't believe our teachers were actually right about math being useful outside of high school! The episode begins with Peter giving up Lois's rainy day fund to a scam artist posing as an insurance salesman. And out of all the things he could have possibly gotten insured for, this genius gets duped into buying this.
Yeah, but I'm sure we've never had a volcano either.
Don't you think we're overdue for one?
Touché, salesman.
Taking candy from a baby is like raiding Fort Knox compared to pulling a fast one on Peter. And to make matters worse, Stewie breaks Meg's glasses since he hates being watched while he sleeps. If only there was an emergency rainy day fund laying around that wasn't spent on volcano insurance.
Can you believe it? Lois thinks I'm bad with money.
You're the white version of a black guy not good with his money.
Well, Quahog is long overdue for an eruption any day now. Naturally, Lois demands Peter find a way to get her money back so Meg can get a new pair of glasses. While drinking away his sorrows to the clam, Cleveland and Quagmire mention how they've been having some lucky financial breaks ever since they hired men with Jewish-sounding names to handle their finances. So, of course, Peter comes to what he thinks is the obvious solution to his money problems.
Wait a second. Rainstein? You're saying I need a Jewish guy to handle my money?
Yeah, I think you can start to see why this episode was problematic, to say the least. Peter goes back home and eavesdrops on Lois, half-heartedly defending his worth as a partner, which further cements his decision to find his own Jewish person. And what better way to blatantly express that to the audience than with this?
I need a...
Yep, that's right. The ever-so-sensitive creators of Family Guy had the brilliant idea of having Peter literally break out in a song filled with Jewish stereotypes like a spinning dreidel and giant menorah. It was so considered very offensive at the time that Fox pulled the plug and straight up banned the entire episode across the US. And because they wanted to get in on the fun as well, sure enough, Malaysia just randomly decided to ban the episode as well. Right after Peter finishes his problematic little tune, a Jewish guy named Max Weinstein knocked on his door asking for help with his car. Peter sees this as a golden opportunity he's been waiting for, and he's not letting it go no matter what.
What do you want?
Financial advice?
How the hell did you know I'm an accountant?
It really is a miracle that he found a Jewish guy fitting the stereotype. Max helps Peter get the rainy day fund back from the insurance scammer, and the latter shows his gratitude by inviting his new accountant over for dinner. From there, Max invites Peter to a synagogue, where he realizes just how many successful people there are in the Jewish community.
Optimus Prime?
That's right, even the Autobots paid their respects to Judaism. Peter hatches a scheme to make Chris smarter by converting him to Max's faith, and so he sneaks his kid down to Las Vegas for a quick and dirty bar mitzvah. Lois is obviously opposed to the idea and forces their whereabouts out of Brian the best way she knows how.
They're in Vegas getting a quickie bar mitzvah.
What?
Good heavens, that feels so good to watch. She arrives just in time to stop the shotgun ceremony, but the other Jewish attendees take offense since they feel like she's insulting their religion. The three of them get chased out and are saved at the very last second by God's blessed and divine intervention.
I think what he's trying to say is gonna be okay.
Yeah, it turns out the big guy up top doesn't like it when you flirt with other religions. Keeping things in Malaysia for now, it's time to throw a little adultery into the mix with the Cleveland-Loretta Quagmire. When Loretta cheats on Cleveland and gets hot and heavy with Quagmire, that's pretty self-explanatory.
Peter Griffin, temporarily suspended CPR. We should go.
I can't really think of anything clever here. It's literally spelled out in the fracking title. The episode begins with Peter inviting his friends on board his new fishing boat for a party out at sea. Quagmire ends up snagging a fish, only for it to land right in between Loretta's mommy milkers. But considering she's a married woman, her reaction is a bit unexpected, to say the least.
Oh, sorry about that, Loretta.
You gonna have to reach into the cookie jar.
Sheesh, man, you know you're messed up if you got Quagmire, of all people, not jumping on the opportunity to fondle some bosoms. But as quickly prevails and he digs into Loretta's cookie jar to get his fish out. It just so happens that Cleveland walks by at that exact moment, but his reaction is equally bizarre.
Show that fishy who's boss.
They have some of that salad you're so fond of. Hey, Quagmire.
How dare you? How dare you, Mr. McFarlane, to frickin' cuck my boy Cleveland like that? Meanwhile, Joe ends up falling overboard during a friendly game of charades and has to be rescued by the two Portuguese guys Peter hired as employees. Once they get him back on board, Peter rises to the occasion and saves his dear friend. Oh yeah, Peter, a few more kicks and he might even be able to walk again. Lois signs the entire family up for CPR class so that they can actually help in a situation like what just happened on the boat. Of course, Peter being Peter, he gets a CPR card almost immediately revoked. How, you might ask?
What the hell is wrong with you?
I've got to check and see if you're sorry yourself.
Are you?
Sir, I'm gonna need you to.
My
You gotta get these
elbow.
trousers
Somebody
on.
call a cop. Whoa!
Yeah, that's how. While Peter and Brian discuss whether it's worth taking the CPR course again, they hear a loud scream from Cleveland's place. Remember the first clip I showed you? In case the Hawaiian shirt wasn't a dead giveaway, that was Loretta and Quagmire doing the nasty. In Cleveland's own home, no less.
That wasn't Cleveland. It was some white guy.
Put some more of that sugar in my bowl.
Come on, man. You could have at least brought her back to your bachelor pad or a hotel or something, man. As it turns out, this scene alone was enough to get the entire episode banned from Malaysia, as the censors there have some pretty strong opinions about adulterous activities. Honestly, Quagmire should just probably be entirely blurred out over there by now. Peter and Brian decide to break the news about Loretta's affair to Quagmire and the Swansons. From there, Peter bites the bullet and confronts Cleveland directly at the clam.
Your wife's cheating on you.
What?
It's actually a pretty funny story. Brian and I walked into your house. She was with some guy going bam, bam, bam.
Good heavens, could you be any less tactful, my guy? Cleveland's so spineless that he actually apologizes to Loretta, prompting her to kick him out of his own house. So the Griffins have to invite him to stay temporarily at their home, where Peter has the bright idea to arrange a revenge lay for Cleveland. So of course he goes to the one guy who might know best about how to get it on with the ladies.
Oh, God.
Huh, sorry guys, let me throw something on.
Look. Holy crap, that's the tattoo.
That's right, ladies and gents. By sheer dumb luck, Peter and Brian inadvertently discover Quagmire was Loretta's lover all along. They immediately spill the beans to Cleveland, but they're shocked when he still shows almost no reaction. Lois has had enough of this and dives into an inspirational speech to get him to express his real feelings, but instead of him getting inspired...
You don't have any passion. The woman wants to see her man be a man. You gotta get a little rough. Peter, hit me.
Yeah.
Ow!
Even in a crisis like this, Brian still finds a way to get something for himself. Peter also tries his hand at coaxing Cleveland's emotions out of him by taking him to a wrestling match, but it ends up affecting him more instead. What finally causes Cleveland to snap is Peter putting on a Quagmire mask and Brian, who's wearing a Loretta mask. Golly goober, what the hell am I watching? Seeing just how enraged Cleveland has become, Peter realizes he may have just screwed up and hides Quagmire in Mayor Adam West's mansion. But Quagmire decides to come clean and apologize to his dear friend, hoping that they can maybe make amends.
Hey, Cleveland, I was just leaving you a message.
You violated my marriage.
Yeah, I don't know what you expected there, my guy. When Cleveland finally has Quagmire cornered, he relents after realizing he just doesn't have it in him to hurt another person. But at the very least, he grows a spine and divorces his cheating wife, and as for him and Quagmire, they settle their beef like men. If I had a nickel for every time a Rocky reference was made in this episode, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird it happened twice, right? I love Doofenshmirtz. But all right, I'm hearing you. This isn't Euro enough for me. Well, let's get a bit more Euro, shall we? With this next one, as Brian and Stewie hit the road in Rhode to Germany, when the two of them have to retrieve Mort from Nazi Germany after he accidentally uses Stewie's time machine. Can't wait to see how modern Germany took to this episode.
Oh, I hope there's another bathroom in here. Oh, thank God, a porta potty.
Honestly, you can't blame him for not thinking straight when his bowels are ready to commit a war crime of their own. Things kick off with the Griffins hosting a watch party for the Academy Awards. Mort desperately has to drop a number 2, but the bathroom is occupied, to say the least.
I'll be out in a minute.
I really need to...
She said she'll be out in a minute.
Who else but Quagmire, really? Mort ends up accidentally activating Stewie's time machine after mistaking it for a toilet, leaving them no choice but to chase after him and get him back to their original timeline. They end up in Warsaw, Poland, and find Mort chilling in a synagogue and attending a Jewish wedding. Well, that was pretty easy. I guess there's no need to rush. Mazel tov. Unfortunately, it's right afterwards that we find out exactly which era of Poland they ended up being in. Yeah, that's way too many swastikas for my liking. 1 is too many swastikas for my liking, by the way, for reference. And it turns out I'm not alone, as it's actually illegal in Germany to display any sort of Nazi imagery. So between this scene and all the later ones that prominently showcase Nazi iconography, it's no surprise that German and Austrian censors immediately scrubbed out the offending scenes before airing it to the public. The Nazi invasion of Poland kicks off, and the 3 of them need to get out of there ASAP. But the return pad is busted, and they have to make their escape after the Nazis start chasing after them. They try to disguise Mort as a Catholic priest priest to get past the checkpoint, but...
Dear God, non-Jewish God.
I can't believe that flawless disguise didn't work. The trio make their getaway on a stolen motorbike, which is then followed by them getting chased in a U-boat. But eventually, they make it to safety in England, where Stewie discovers their return pad is out of uranium fuel. Now, where could they possibly acquire more of that? No, really, I'm asking. I don't know.
But where do we find uranium in World War II Europe? At the top secret atomic research facility.
I'm not going to question how exactly Brian, of all people, knows that, so we're just going to move along nicely. The three of them enlist in the British Royal Air Force and get into a dogfight with the German Luftwaffe, which they honestly should not have survived were it not for some timely intervention on the part of their allies.
Oh no, it's another wave of fighters. We're outnumbered.
Stand by, my Hawkman! Die!
This episode is just full of 80s references, huh? Regardless, it's still not enough to stop the dynamic trio from having to make an emergency bailout from their plane. Thankfully, they have an emergency raft that takes them down the snowy mountains and a waterfall that leads them straight to Berlin. Stewie then comes up with a brilliant plan for them to acquire the uranium with minimal risk.
Hey, guys!
How's it going?
Well, it's a dog-eat-dog, right?
Aw, he's practically the spitting image of the guy. They successfully managed to get their hands on some uranium fuel, but they end up running into the real on their way out, who immediately orders their execution. Thankfully, they managed to sing a musical number long enough to escape on the return pad and back to their original timeline.
We're home! Everything's fine!
That was a close one to say the least. But Stewie realizes they arrived 30 seconds before Mort originally entered the time machine, so he does what he needs to be done to prevent the events of the episode from happening all over again.
Can I poop in here?
No!
Too late.
As General Shepard would say, that's one less loose end. Now let's take a trip down to South America and into Venezuela to see how they dealt with the episode of 420. In this one, Quahog embraces the spirit of blazing it after Brian and Stewie start a citywide campaign to legalize marijuana.
Bro, trust me, bro. Weed's not that addictive, bro. I can quit anytime, bro.
Frick was that? The episode begins with Peter and the gang having drinks at the Clam when Quagmire invites them over to his place, and judging from his tone, it must be a pretty urgent situation.
Well, what is it? What's a big damn deal?
It's a cat.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Joe. The guys are increasingly annoyed at Quagmire for spending more time with this cat than with them, so they decide that they're gonna do something about it. While Quagmire's out of the house, they sneak in and plan to shave the cat with a razor as a cheeky little prank. But for some reason, the guys decided it would be a brilliant idea to let Peter do the shaving.
Peter, you killed it!
He's got 8 more lives. Okay, 7 more lives.
I don't think that's how it works, man. Peter and Brian go to dispose of the body after agreeing to tell Quagmire the cat ran off. They get pulled over by the cops along the way, and one of them ends up getting busted, but not for the reason you might think.
Well, that all seems fine.
Hot! You're under arrest, dirtbag! Oh.
Should have offered to share, Brian. Maybe then they would have let you off the hook. The family eventually bails him out, but he's on probation for drug use, which means that he's subject to random drug tests from Joe to make sure he's not being a dirty, rotten drug user and a menace to society.
It's Joe.
Crap. Just a sec.
Name a more iconic duo than Brian and thinking the rules don't apply to you. Brian tries to cheat the test by using Stewie's urine, but Lois catches him in the act and shames him for stooping so low. But of course, Brian being Brian, he doubles down and teams up with Stewie to perform an outrageous musical number in public about the joys of smoking weed. I mean, just look at this.
Bag of weed, because everything is better with a bag of weed.
While I don't really care whether the guy next to me is blazing it, making a whole song and dance about it just because I feel discriminated against is such a classic Brian thing to do. And as for the censors in Venezuela, this blatant promotion of drug use is way too much for them to air. In fact, they were so offended by it, the entirety of Family Guy was banned in their country. Actually, did I say was? It is, to this day. They must really not like weed over there. In response to the public demand for weed, Mayor West passes a law to legalize marijuana and everyone starts toking up.
Let's read it both together.
Okay.
Ready?
Here's Ollie Williams. How's the weather look, Ollie?
Not too bad.
Right on.
Brian tries to tote this out as a positive since everyone is so chilled out and the quality of life in Quahog has improved as a whole, but not everyone's happy with the new changes. Carter's losing money since everyone is switching from timber to hemp to make everything, so he bribes Peter into helping him make an anti-marijuana PSA. And of course, Peter just knocks it out of the park.
Hey, I got a great idea. Kill 6 million Jews.
Yeah!
I got the idea from while I was smoking pot.
When will people learn not to trust Peter to do things for them? Carter decides to go directly to Brian and bribe him into joining his anti-weed cause by promising to publish his novel. So of course, he immediately sells out to the man and sings an anti-marijuana song that convinces Mayor West to make weed illegal again. As for Brian's book, literally 0 copies are sold as critics pan it as the worst book they've ever read. Ha! Take that, Brian. Let's move away from warm and sunny Venezuela to the cold and rainy hellhole that is Britain. Sorry, British viewers, I love you. Things get bloody frosty and Rhode to the North Pole when Stewie and Brian go on an epic journey to the North Pole to kill Santa Claus. Well, that was easy. Time to go home, I guess. This episode starts with Brian taking Stewie to the mall so that he can see Santa. But with all the kids already waiting in line, he ends up being one of the last people to get a shot at the big guy.
Wait, what are you doing? You can't leave now!
If you'll excuse him, Stewie. Santa needs to go snort some of that white powder after dealing with bratty kids all day. Snow! Come on, guys, we mean snow. Stewie swears vengeance against Santa for refusing to hear out his requests and forces Brian to take him directly to the North Pole. Naturally, Brian tries to pull a fast one and takes Stewie to a carnival that's themed to look like Santa's village, but Stewie easily sees through the ruse and ends up hitching a ride with a Canadian truck driver. Here's how that goes.
I'm just holding it.
This trip is already going down in flames. Brian and Stewie end up stranded in the middle of nowhere until a friendly Canadian loans them his snowmobile to continue their journey. They keep heading north until they finally run out of gas, but their luck holds strong as they find an abandoned cabin to stay in the night. Now, you might be wondering at this point, aren't the rest of the Griffins worried about where their baby and dog are? Worry not, because Stewie already has that one covered.
Hey, Lois, would you make an appointment for me to be neutered?
Are you sure, Brian?
And whatever I say in 2 days, do not let me convince you that I've changed my mind.
You can't even tell the difference. Brian and Stewie continue on foot and finally reach Santa's workshop, only to realize it's an industrial hellscape spewing toxins everywhere. Santa himself is a suicidal, sickly old man, while his elves are all twisted and deformed from the toxic fumes and constant inbreeding. Turns out that all the kids in the world with their insatiable demand for presents means that the North Pole constantly has to work overtime to meet demand. Oh, and don't even get me started on the reindeer.
Then the reindeer eat them, creatures with a bloodlust for elf flesh.
Bad Rudolph, bad reindeer. Stewie and Brian's arrival triggers a particularly gruesome scene where Santa and the elves launch into a musical number about how Christmas sucks because anything they do is never enough for the kids of the world who keep demanding more and more. Their anger and frustration grows and grows until
Christmas time is killing us.
Golly Gilbert, that is dark, even by Family Guy standards. No shocker that this scene and some of the more graphic ones, like the reindeer devouring the elf, got completely censored in the UK for excessive violence. I mean, come on, you can't have your tea and crumpets accompanied by elf slaughter. Santa collapses from the strain of voicing his anger, leaving Stewie and Brian with no choice but to try and make the gift deliveries themselves. This goes about as well as you might expect.
We came down the chimney, but we forgot the presents. It's kind of a funny story.
It's only after they beat the homeowners and tie up their daughter that they realize they're not even at the right house. And because they're obviously terrible at the Santa gig, everyone else wakes up to find 0 presents under the Christmas trees. In a last-ditch effort to save the holidays, Stewie and Brian go on TV to beg everyone to limit themselves to 1 gift per year. No way people actually agree to this.
1 Christmas gift a year for each one of us. Can we live with that?
I can.
Me too.
So can I.
I can too.
Count me in.
I can live with that.
Holy frick, everyone actually agreed to this. By some Christmas miracle, everyone in the entire world agrees on something, and Santa and the elves are able to recover, and they all lived happily ever after. At least until someone in the Griffin family inevitably screws it up for everyone else. I think we've had enough of Britain for one day, though. We need to get some good old American familiarity, and if you thought Stewie's North Pole visit was dark, you're not even close to ready for what goes down in Screams of Silence, the story of Brenda Q. When Quagmire recovers from an accident and learns his sister Brenda needs help to escape her abusive boyfriend Jeff.
Come here! Fat, ugly...
A wife beater and a crew cut? This guy is practically the poster child for abusive partners. The episode starts with Peter and Joe going on a fishing trip only to call things off since Quagmire was supposed to join them. They go to check on him, but
Holy crap!
He must have autoerotically asphyxiated himself
While he was watching Clown.
Oh, yeah. Baby, you make me so...
I've said it already, but it bears repeating. Who else but Quagmire, am I right? While he's recovering at the hospital, Brenda pays a surprise visit with Jeff to see how he's doing. Since her brother was still unconscious, she tries singing him a nursery rhyme from their childhood, which miraculously causes him to wake up. And how does her partner react?
Oh, Glenn! Thank God you're all right!
You touching my girl?
That's her brother.
Yeah, that's how it starts.
Come on, man. Even a pervert like Quagmire wouldn't go after his own sister. Right? Back at Quagmire's place, Brenda agrees to look after him despite Jeff's protests, and Jeff makes certain the whole neighborhood knows just how pissed off he is by screaming at his girlfriend all night long.
Hey, Peter.
Quagmire, you look terrible.
I didn't get any sleep.
Yeah, it turns out it's hard to catch some shut-eye when your sister's getting abused in the next room over. Lois invites Brenda out to a meal, only for her to discover Jeff had given her a black eye that very same night. Quagmire vents his own frustrations to the guys at the clan, but Joe says he can't actually do anything until Brenda files a formal complaint. Just then, Joe has a brilliant idea.
I want my sister back. Brenda, I love you. Please make the right decision.
Which is a perfect time for me to tell my jokes.
Peter!
No, not Peter's stand-up routine. Joe stages an intervention where everyone tries to voice their concerns about Jeff, which goes pretty badly for the most part, like Meg suggesting that Brenda could change Jeff or Chris getting pissed at Joe for calling him the wrong name. It's only after Quagmire makes a heartfelt plea for his sister to save herself that she finally starts to come around, but Jeff has other plans in mind for his partner.
You're getting married?
But only 'cause she's pregnant.
Oh, congratulations! Thought of any names yet?
Frickin' read the room, man! Later that night, over a game of cards, Quagmire continues to worry about what to do with Jeff. He and Peter decide it might be best to just frickin' kill him, with Joe obviously opposed to that idea. But then this scene happens.
What the hell? Did you change the channel while I was going to get a beer? We're watching Leno, you... His soft, gentle humor connects with my mainstream sensibility.
No!
The entire episode has skirted around graphically depicting Jeff's abuse up to this point, but once this scene came up after all the other signs of domestic abuse, it was more than enough for several TV stations in the US to outright ban this episode from airing when it first came out. And for Joe, it would also be the tipping point for him to join in on the plot to kill Jeff.
Let's waste this.
So the guys invite our serial over for a midnight hunting trip. Jeff goes off to take a piss, and Quagmire decides he's just gonna shoot him when he returns. Unfortunately, Jeff overhears the plotting and beats them to the punch by pointing his gun at them first. Joe attempts to defuse the situation, but Quagmire is adamant that Jeff gets what he deserves. You can only imagine how this perfectly sane individual reacts to that response.
See you later, schmucks!
Quagmire manages to bait Jeff into fighting him with his bare hands, but Jeff is clearly the better fighter and strangles Quagmire until he's unconscious. Unfortunately for him, Quagmire has plenty of experience choking himself out and uses this opportunity to get in the car and crush Jeff against a tree. Brenda is finally free from her abuser and all is well again in Quahog. I wonder how Peter feels about all this.
I kind of want to kill somebody else now. Oh, what?
Didn't you learn your frackin' lesson from season 2, Peter? Things get even crazier for our American audience in Turban Cowboy when Peter befriends a Muslim man after a skydiving accident.
Oh, ground. Ah, damn it.
Do we have to keep talking about this episode of this frackin' channel? I hate seeing that scene. How do you ever recover from it? Anyway, the episode begins with the guys hanging out of the clam and trying to figure out something new and exciting to shake up their boring old routines. I feel that. Peter suggests that they go skydiving, and the guys end up going on their first jump together, which makes me wonder, does Joe get to keep his wheelchair when he dives?
I'm dead already. You're looking at a dead man. I might not even pull the cord at all.
Look at them flailing around like little confetti noodles. But it's here that Family Guy has yet another unfortunate coincidence, like what happened with Rhode to Rhode Island. You see, they thought it'd be funny to add a cheeky little cutaway gag for Peter as he touched down.
Boston Marathon winner Peter Griffin.
I just got in my car and drove it. When there was a guy in my way, I killed him.
That's already bad enough as it is. Problem is that less than a month after this episode's original air date, the actual Boston Marathon bombings literally happened, which also happened to be perpetrated by Muslim terrorists. Suffice to say that censors in the US immediately banned the episode afterwards, and for good reason. In fact, it wasn't until 2022 that this episode finally started getting aired again. Peter ends up getting a taste for the thrill of skydiving when he flies a bit too close to the sun and ends up impaling himself on a metal pole. It's there that he befriends a Muslim guy named Mahmoud and invites him to the clam to hang out with the other guys. And although Mahmoud doesn't really gel with the whole drinking and womanizing of Western culture, it's Peter who takes an interest in Islamic culture and potentially becoming a Muslim, which is surprisingly open-minded of him.
I mean, who doesn't want to sit around the table and suck on the same thing with a bunch of guys?
And there's the real reason. Peter ends up going further down the path to becoming a Muslim, and Mahmoud invites him over to a little get-together with his friends. And with Family Guy being Family Guy, I'm sure this will just be a wholesome get-together with no racial stereotypes whatsoever.
He's the perfect man to help us blow up the Quahog Bridge.
Everybody down!
Yeah, no, we're doing the whole terrorist bit. Yeah, who saw that coming? Joe and Quagmire manage to convince Peter that he's become an unwitting part of a terrorist organization, but they convince him to play along for now to foil their plans to blow up the Quahog Bridge. Joe attaches a wire to Peter to get more information about the plot, where he'll learn that he'll be the one to drive the van past the toll booth since he, doesn't look like a Muslim. Unfortunately for Peter, he's not exactly the subtle type when it comes to things like this.
Sorry, can you repeat all that? Set an itch right by my microphone.
Smooth as butter, bud. The terrorists decide the bombing has to happen right now and force Peter to gunpoint to drive the van as originally planned, and sure enough, when he gets there...
Okay, you're good to go.
Isn't it great being white? Oh no! Peter desperately tries to talk Mahmoud out of his plan with a patriotic speech about the glory of America, but it falls on deaf ears as he arms the bomb. Just then, Joe bursts into the van and manages to destroy the detonator by knocking it out of Mahmoud's hand. The day is saved, and Peter decides that there's no better way to celebrate than a night out at the Clam. He just needs to let Horace know to get their table ready.
Let's go.
Props for trying, I guess. Let's head back to Asia and visit South Korea to see how they handled this episode. And of course, we get to deal with even more terrorists in Passenger Fatty 7 when the guys go on a flight to San Francisco that ends up getting frickin' hijacked.
Open the door, or I'll start executing passengers.
Coming on this trip was a terrible idea.
Poor Cleveland. First his wife cheats on him, then his getaway with the guys gets ruined by some terrorists. The episode begins with the guys hanging out at the Clam again when the Family Guy creators decide to kick off the controversy super early with this racist little gem.
Too far!
Hold still.
Thank you, Korean sweatshop animator. Earned your nickel this week.
South Korea is not even featured in this episode, and they're still catching strays. And although that country is as close to a real-life version of cyberpunk as we can get, the censors over there were obviously pissed at getting called out like this. So instead of censoring the offending scene like some of the other countries have done on this list, they straight up banned the entire episode. Sore spot much. Quagmire mentions taking his mother with him on a flight and poses the idea of bringing the other guys with him on a trip to San Francisco. Peter's eager to go, but it turns out Lois had also planned a girls' trip of her own. So, of course, Peter steps up to be the generous and caring husband we all know and love, and...
You guys, come on, we gotta go now. Let's go, move it. We're stealing Lois's cab.
Son of a...
Better luck next time, Lois. The guys have a blast doing all the touristy stuff that San Francisco has to offer, and Quagmire even invites them into the cockpit on the return flight to see how he operates a plane. Unfortunately for Quagmire, the guys end up leaving the impression that his job isn't actually all that difficult, but of course this ends up being the one flight where that doesn't become the case.
Nobody move!
Hey, at least the Family Guy creators didn't make the Muslim this time, I guess. Quagmire refuses to open the cockpit door, so the terrorists respond by threatening to execute some of the passengers. Oh boy, hopefully it's not one of the guys.
Last chance, open the door.
Don't open it, Quagmire. Yeah. Wait, what?
Honestly, such a valid reaction from Quagmire. Peter's usual antics creates an opening for Cleveland and Joe to slip into the cargo hold to retrieve Joe's gun from his bag, but the terrorists notice their absence and send in one of their guys to investigate with Peter as leverage. Joe uses his tactical thinking to open the landing gear hatch, sending Peter and the terrorists flying down onto the gear. For a brief moment, they stop fighting to admire the beauty of Yosemite beneath them. Maybe, just maybe, in another life, they could have been friends, or maybe even something more.
Die in hell, Euro trash!
Whoa, Cleveland, take it easy, man! The three guys make their way back to the main cabin and successfully knock the other hijackers unconscious, but right as Quagmire opens up the cockpit, a secret fourth hijacker suddenly pulls out his gun and forces him to crash the plane directly into Las Vegas. Everything seems doomed yet again until Quagmire flexes his piloting experience for everyone to see.
Attention, passengers! Come on, doesn't anybody pay attention to the sign?
It's me. I'm the guy who doesn't have a seatbelt on half the time. It's around this time the military jets move in to intercept the aircraft, but because the hijackers disable the plane's communications, Quagmire has no way left to let them know that they still have control of the cockpit. Leave it to Peter to save the day yet again.
Hey! We knocked out all the bad guys. We kicked their asses and we have their guns.
You know what? His heart's in the right place, man. Naturally, the fighter jets start shooting missiles at the plane, forcing Quagmire to bob and weave as best as he can in a frickin' jumbo airliner. Even when the plane does get hit, he manages to nail a perfect landing in a canyon. Quagmire ends up earning the respect of the other guys, and everyone gets reunited with their loved ones. Isn't that sweet? I wonder which airline Quagmire flies with, though.
Oh, yeah, in case we didn't say, Spirit Airlines.
Yeah, that makes sense. But we can't forget jolly old Russia and all this, and you better believe they didn't appreciate it when Family Guy took a few jabs at Putin in PD4. When Vladimir Putin visits Quahog after Peter writes to him about an alternate ending to Rocky IV in which Rocky loses to Drago.
Where is bathroom? I George Brett myself on plane.
You can Google that during the commercial.
Pro tip, do not Google it during the commercial. The episode starts with a survival-style recap of Brian living in a crappy apartment on the other side of Quahog after he posted a tweet in poor taste. He's a week behind on rent already, on par for a failing writer, so he's got no choice but to find an actual job to keep a roof over his head. Meanwhile, Peter convinces Lois to let him skip a family trip to her parents' place so that he can hang out with the guys and celebrate Dolph Lundgren's birthday by watching Rocky IV. I can't imagine why he'd be so opposed to visiting his in-laws.
Pass the Polana all fruit.
Would you please pass the jelly?
The guys aren't able to find their DVD copy of Rocky IV, so they grab a Russian bootleg copy from the mini-mart, but lo and behold, they end up getting exactly what they paid for.
Drago wins!
What the hell?
Son of a...
The Russians do have a penchant for rewriting history the way they want it, huh? Meanwhile, Brian scores a job at a suicide hotline center where he gets the hots for one of his coworkers, Martha. Oh boy! I'm sure this will go perfectly well. As for Peter, he writes to Vladimir Putin himself and claims that any American can beat up any Russian. Unfortunately for him, the Russian leader himself shows up to make him prove it.
Pretty quick, huh?
What, you didn't think he was gonna fight fair, did you? Brian keeps trying to shoot his shot with Martha, but she wisely steers clear of him. So instead, he decides to use her Facebook profile as in his workplace. Degenerate behavior, man! And right as she comes back to give him a chance, she catches him with his pants down.
You know what, Brian? I will. Oh my God!
A funeral photo! Even for you, Brian, that is a new low. Meanwhile, Putin and Peter become fast friends, even going as far as to ride horses together through Quahog while shirtless. When it's time for Putin to go, he invites Peter to join them in Russia, which he eventually accepts. As for Brian, his money problems mean that he has no choice but to try and plant drugs on somebody and then snitch on the cops. I wonder who he's gonna pick.
Tell him you have no idea. Hello, officer.
Is this your desk, ma'am? Found it.
Brian is an actual scumbag in this episode, man, and that's really saying something. Peter's having a great time in Russia, but he soon learns that Putin's been interfering with not only American elections, but also American football. Take a wild guess as to which Peter cares about more.
Over here, we rig every American election. American football.
No! Just one more thing Peter has in common with the average American. But as it turns out, Russian censors really don't appreciate being called out for things they've totally never done before, like election interference. And so, much like South Korea, they went nuclear route and banned the entire episode from airing in their country. Go figure. Peter realizes Putin is scheming to suspend Tom Brady and challenges him to a boxing match. The fight is actually pretty even without Russian bodyguards interfering, and they eventually realize there's only one way to really settle their differences.
Say you, stay for always.
Peter's doing so much for world peace, and in his closing monologue, Peter reveals that while he did make it back home safely, Putin poisoned him with radioactive tea. Aw, those cheeky Russians. Well, that's it for me today, and if you want to see more Family Guy scenes that were as wild as these, click the video on screen now. See ya!